And again, I'm just waiting till the 20-second mark because that's usually when the video version of this will pick up for the replay. Hey everyone, hey Wellness Crew, and welcome to today's reading of The Gene Keys Golden Path Love, a guide to your Venus sequence. The 6 lines of your EQ, and again, EQ means emotional quotient. The 6 lines of your EQ are a view into your basic ideology. In the Venus sequence, we distinguish the words psychology and ideology by attaching them to 2 different realms of the IQ and the EQ, respectively. Thus, your ideology refers to a core emotional attitude that you evolve primarily through your second 7-year cycle. Because it is during this phase that you develop your full independent ego. It is also when you get your first real taste of what it means to relate to another as separate form, yourself. Your ideology, therefore, runs very deeply inside you. It informs and motivates your psychology, the mental attitudes you evolve more fully in your 3rd cycle of development. EQ Keynotes, Ideology. Line 1, Self-esteem / self-sabotage. Thank you so much for the like. You can see from this first line that the whole foundation stone of our emotional wound is the issue of self-esteem. Depending on the patterns that developed in our first 7-year cycle, some of us will carry deeper issues of self-esteem than others. The focus of the first line is always inwards. So at a low frequency, this is a self-undermining pattern. Because of the universal nature of the sacred wound, we all carry issues of self-esteem, and they tend to come up during times of emotional conflict. It is important to look at the repressive and reactive tendencies of the gene key of your EQ, so that you can see the full spectrum of ways in which you might undermine yourself if you have a first-line EQ. This is a pattern where you may stubbornly insist on a course of action that you know will only lead to more suffering, but you seem unable to prevent yourself. Of course, once you begin to see that this behavior emerged as a form of emotional defense when you were young, you should find it easier to dismantle the pattern as an adult. Sometimes self-sabotage can be very subtle. Our physical body will often betray a deeper emotional symptom that we are not admitting to ourselves. Honest contemplation of your deepest feelings will always reveal the truth of how you really feel inside yourself. Sometimes we simply need to shine more of the razor-like light of awareness deeper into our emotional lives than we might feel comfortable with. On the other hand, once you are aware of your tendency to sabotage your own and others' joyousness, the deep foolishness of such a stance can be a powerful leveler. You may well find that you have healed a deep and lasting emotional pattern with relative ease. The healthy first line will always have a strong sense of self-esteem coupled with a good dose of humility. Self-esteem is such a beautiful and influential trait, and if you have a first-line EQ, you can constantly remind yourself that it is your natural inner emotional state. Line 2, courtesy/aggression. Thank you so much for the like, I appreciate it. By its nature, the second line does not tend to easily keep things inside. Feelings have a habit of just popping out very readily. This can either be a great gift when it is appropriately channeled, or it can be very detrimental, both to yourself and to others. In relationships, the second line's most common low frequency expression is aggressiveness. The second line is a natural conduit for powerful emotions such as anger, and anger with blame attached becomes aggression. As a child, this was the pattern you may have learned that seem to make you feel more in control of your emotional environment. To attack as a form of defense. Aggression can take many forms, some subtler and more passive than others. The subtlest form of aggression can come simply through the tone of your voice. Because of the passion of the second line, it can be very challenging to overcome such a deeply ingrained pattern. The high frequency of the second line EQ is courtesy. We have already seen the importance of this quality in all relationships, and the second line is the champion of courtesy. Courtesy is not perhaps as it might sound. It is not all restrained delicacy and politeness. It is passion directed with consideration. Powerful emotions like anger can be released without blame. The anger can simply be released in a pure manner, or it can be channeled through some creative medium. The second line nature is all about free self-expression, and without awareness, this can be very destructive to the peace of any relationship. With awareness and courtesy, self-expression can take place in a non-reactive way. In fact, free self-expression with awareness can be hugely powerful as a way of reaffirming your own and others' self-esteem. This is the true power of the second line, to make others feel good about themselves. Line 3, sympathy/apathy. The healthy third line EQ is the kind of person you will always want to turn to when you are experiencing difficulty or pain. Such people have a way of making you feel instantly comfortable, accepted, and emotionally at ease. The same pattern at a low frequency, however, will always invite suspicion. These may be interesting people, but there will always be something about them that sets you ill at ease. This is a pattern of emotional apathy. Apathy means that you, at some deep level, have suppressed the emotions that make you feel vulnerable. This pattern will have first been imprinted between the ages of 8 and 14, when we experienced emotional pressure either from our peer group or when we turned away from our parents in some way. Apathy involves shutting yourself off from intense feelings, which in turn makes you less able to sense or be aware of the feelings of others. If you have a third line EQ, then you need to carefully consider and contemplate the ways you try and deflect intense emotions. Sometimes the third line EQ can make a good pretense of being emotional, but the reality is that often the emotions only exist on the surface. Emotional awareness is about moving through your own process and coming out the other side, whereas the third line can find ways of never resolving an issue, but remain in a kind of eternal emotional loop. The secret for the third line is to break out of their pattern of self-obsession. The third line has a natural gift for understanding the full emotional spectrum from sadness to joy. This is what makes them masters of sympathy, because they can be vulnerable without being overindulgent. You have to be vulnerable in order to resonate in true sympathy with another person, because you can allow your own emotions to respond to theirs without losing your own sense of self in the process. You can consider this in the light of your gift and city in the sphere of your EQ. Line 4, kindness/meanness. The fourth line is a classic pattern that we all learn as we move through our childhood. Particularly as we begin to relate with the opposite, this pattern comes to the fore. Meanness is an externalization of our own low self-esteem. It is also a way of pushing someone else away when we fear rejection by them. The fourth line has a natural social gift, so as these children develop through puberty, they can use this gift to manipulate others in their social circle. Although meanness can be direct at times, most of the time it is an indirect pattern, used behind another person's back, for example. The fourth line can be very political in this way. If you have a fourth line EQ, then you need to look honestly at your behavior when you feel rejected by another. How do you reject others? Do you use subtle tactics, and are you aware of such tactics? Meanness is simply the other side of kindness. Kindness is a natural expression of the fourth line as it flows out of your self-esteem. If you feel good about yourself, then you will always wish to share the feeling with others. The fourth line can be very saintly in this way, giving of itself without expectation of return. True kindness is also often hidden. Out of consideration for another person's feelings, you might choose not to say something that you know would hurt them. Such small acts of kindness usually go unseen, but at the same time, they help propagate harmony. If you have a fourth line EQ, consider the gift and the city of the gene key of the sphere as a quality you can offer to others in all of your relationships. Meanness makes us feel bad, whereas kindness always makes us feel good. It may be obvious, but it also tells us something profound about life, that it truly pays to be kind. Line 5, respect/disrespect. The final two lines of the sphere of EQ are respect and reverence, which both bring the whole subject of emotional wounding and transformation to a climax. The fifth line, as we have seen repeatedly throughout the Golden Path, always carries this potential for respect. This is what imbues the fifth line with its special quality as a leader. And it is here that the respect emerges, from an emotional maturity that can immediately be sensed by others. At the shadow frequency, however, the fifth line falls into the trap of disrespect. Disrespect can manifest in so many different forms. It can be a lack of respect for one's body, one's own health, or for feelings in general. Or disrespect can be projected outwards onto the environment, the culture, or specific people. Disrespect is an energy field that can also be subtle. It can come over as impatience, cynicism, ingratitude, or selfishness. Sometimes the fifth line will abuse its powers of leadership and influence by pursuing their own agenda and ignoring the wider impact they have on the world. Thank you so much for the like. We see this pattern in many influential people in the modern world. It is interesting then that this will lead to increase one's power is linked to a deep-seated emotional insecurity. If you have a fifth line EQ, then your emotional shadow issues are always about power struggles. So you might like to consider the deeper worldview that lies beneath these patterns. Many successful people are damaged emotionally. Emotional transformation for the fifth line therefore often involves a process of deep humbling, in which there is often some kind of a fall from grace. It usually takes a powerful event to shake the fifth line awake from its deep need to try and increase its sense of power. An emotionally healthy EQ always carries this humility into the world, and it is this sense of internal radiant power and confidence, coupled with humility, that draws the respect of others. The key to gaining respect from others is, of course, to respect oneself first and foremost. And this precludes that you are really familiar with your own shadows. Line 6, reverence/alienation. When we come to the sixth line, we move from respect to reverence. Although these two themes are connected, they manifest as very different gifts in the world. Although it is founded upon respect for all creatures, Reverence is not in any way about issues of power. The sixth line is not designed to be a leader like the fifth line. The sixth line does not carry that radiant magnetic quality of the fifth line. More than any of the lines, the sixth line is a journey whose themes change throughout your life. If you have a sixth line EQ, then your life will be a voyage of emotional discovery. It may not be an easy journey, since the final goal of the journey is emotional wisdom, and that can only be attained after many trials. Having said this, the sixth line has an amazing staying power, and this inner resilience is held up by a deep vision. The danger is that at the shadow frequencies, we lose touch with the vision. The vision will always be some kind of unconscious knowledge, knowing that one day we will find out what true love really feels like. The sixth line has to be the most patient of all the lines. Emotions are the new arena of human transformation, and people with the sixth line EQ are the pioneers of a new understanding of the emotional plane. The shadow keynote of the sixth line EQ is alienation. Every sixth line will inherently know what this means, and will feel it as a theme that comes and goes throughout their lives. Reverence is about honoring the long-term view. It is about experiencing the full spectrum of emotions, and above all, being compassionate towards oneself. Sometimes the sixth line may feel as though it's traveling through a tunnel, and at certain times you emerge and are flooded by the light. Then you move into another phase where you are once again in the tunnel. This whole process has a purpose. It cannot be controlled, but must be surrendered to and embraced. In the end, you will become stronger, more open-hearted, and more conscious of the beauty of life than you can ever imagine. This is the true meaning of reverence. Thank you so much for joining me for today's reading of the Gene Keys Golden Path Love, a guide to your Venus sequence. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, and or join one of the membership tiers as it is popping off. I'll see you on the next live stream or video. Be well, stay wild as well.